to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen. With me today are life coaches Cindy Chavez and Jackie Gates. This is your daily dose of happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today.
In fact, we're happy to be doing anything at all because my computer decided it was going to do a major update before the show. Actually, it decided about 5 hours before the show, and it's chugging right along saying, I think I can. So I decided to agree with it. I think you can, computer.
It appears to be doing fine.
Yeah, so hopefully there won't be any major freezes or anything like that. And if there is, you guys will just carry on, I'm sure. But I'd like to be a part of the conversation. So hopefully there'll be no freezes.
Yes. I did an update last night, where it says, as soon as you say yes, and it says that its approximate time is 22 minutes. And then when the progress bar is about a quarter of the way, it says 35 minutes.
You're right.
And halfway it says 45. It's like, wait a minute, something is going backwards here.
I mean, I knew we had power over time, but what? Holy cow.
Technology. But we are the Jetsons. So I'm grateful for all
We
that.
are, absolutely.
It's actually apropos because we decided that the topic today was going to be trust and abundance. And if you can't trust the computer, that's like stage one. The trust we're talking about is at a much higher level. So
Yeah.
I guess we have to start there. Let's start trusting the computer and we'll have an abundance of show.
I love this topic. I love it. I used to actually, I
Yes.
still occasionally do sign an email to a client, especially with trust yourself, trust the universe, trust the process. I think that's like everything hinges on that, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Because if we're not trusting, and the main thing I think is trusting all three of those things, trusting ourselves. That's not always easy.
Well, that's actually the factor that makes the other two challenging because we're the ones who have to do the trusting. And it has to be in our own lives on the things that we have the most difficulty trusting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you were talking about abundance, and I was thinking, well, that idea that we're made to experience abundance, and yet so many people aren't. And it's, through no fault of their own. It's just we often think of abundance as meaning a certain thing. Right? Like a lot of times, all of this very new age mindset, we use the word abundance instead of just saying money.
Well, I think we mean it also broader than that, but I see your point.
We do, but sometimes people don't want to talk about money or finances.
True.
Yes. The whole idea that like money isn't spiritual or, and so they'll say abundance instead. And yet, like you said, yes, abundance is so much bigger, deeper, wider, broader. So we often are experiencing abundance in lots of areas, but we tend to sometimes notice the areas where we're not experiencing abundance because,
we're human.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true.
Or we have an abundance of what we'd rather not have an abundance of.
That's right. Boy, do I have an abundance of all this stuff I hate.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
But this trusting in your abundance thing is also a serious topic in a sense because, well, first of all, it's one of the hardest things. But second of all, it's one of those things we actually don't define very well a lot of the time. And I mean specifically for ourselves. I don't know if you guys have seen the retake on the movie The Secret. It's a fictional version, The Secret Dare to Dream. It's a fictional story, but it basically tells the ideas of the law of attraction. And one of the things that occurs in the movie is two of the protagonists are talking, and one of them asks the other, well, what do you want for your birthday? And she says, well, I don't know. And he says, well, if you don't know what you want, how can you ask for it? Which is pretty profound because if you don't know what your abundance is, how can you ask for it?
Right. You can't have what you want if you don't know what it is.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. You have to get specific. You have to have something for. You have to collapse the universe around a a decision, an intention, a havingness. It's otherwise it'll just give you what it's always given you, and that's often the problem.
Yes, exactly.
Mhm.
But it's also the challenge at the same time. And that
Yeah.
challenge is an important challenge because
Mhm.
what it means is we have control over that. We may not realize we have control over it, but we have control over it. And it really begins with recognizing how clear am I about what it is I'm asking for. Now, like if I'm saying, I want abundance in my life, well, what does that mean to me? 'Cause
Right.
it's not going to mean the same thing to you or to
Yeah,
me.
and
It's all going to be different.
Yes. I think that's really important, is to be able to,
yeah,
we don't have to define it
absolutely.
for everyone. We have to define it for ourselves. Yeah, definitely. And how do we do that?
And we have to do it specifically, like Jackie was saying. And that's actually where the challenge is, because that's where we have to start imagining.
Mhm.
A lot of us.
Yes, it is. Where we do
Right?
have to start imagining.
Yeah. And a lot of us.
Excuse me if I interrupt you, but
No, that's just the computer's having a hard
oh,
time today. That's all.
yeah, and I keep it feels like I'm interrupting, and it's like I thought you'd finish, but you still it was a glitch. So
Our
okay.
computers are working very hard for us, and we really appreciate that.
We do. Well done, computers. Yay for the internet. Yes, absolutely. I think it is this imagining part because it's such an interesting thing about asking for abundance. My favorite experience of abundance being blown out of the water is that for the longest time, I thought that, well, firstly, I love to travel and I wanted to fly first class. I have flown to South Africa several times, always in coach. It's 21 hours in a chair.
Ouch.
It's a very long flight.
Cindy is covering her head saying, no.
I keep imagining. I know. Yeah, it is. It's a long flight. It's a good thing I love my mother. Anywho, it is. But it is this idea that I thought that the abundance that I could have would be first class, right? Being able to sleep horizontally. Oh my God, that sounded like the nth degree. So that was what I had on my vision board, horizontal.
Uh-oh, Jackie's frozen.
And I thought I was the one who was going to freeze today.
But I can't remember his name now. Randy Gage. And he was saying,
Uh-oh.
I thought I was the one who was frozen. I don't know who's frozen and who's not. I'm just going to keep talking. And Randy Gage mentioned that he had flown first class in Emirates and he had had a shower at 30,000 feet.
Ooh.
And this blew my mind because how do you ask for an abundance that you don't know exists yet?
Yeah.
This is the piece where we ask for what we want, but we are confined to what we know. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's a really good point.
Yeah, so it's making me think about something, and that is a minute ago when Walt was talking about the feelings, because I always go back to this, right? Neville, assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled. If we're wishing for abundance, and we're talking about being specific, but now we're talking about this conundrum about I need to be specific, but I don't really know everything that's out there. I can only know what I know. So how about intending for the feeling of feeling abundance? You know, it makes me think of the time I did the experiment with I Feel Rich, where I did 1,000 affirmations a day of I feel rich for like a month. And the things that happened during that month were sort of mind-blowing. I don't know why I stopped.
I wondered that myself, actually, but
yeah, but they, just things that kept happening, not just like money coming in, which it did, but other situations like being at a restaurant and having the manager come over and give us like a $300 bottle of wine. you know, just like talk about, I feel rich, but it was like coming from all directions.
Mhm.
And we weren't being specific. We were just going for the feeling. So we chose, I feel rich instead of I am rich, or, you know, what, any other affirmation. We just went for the feeling. What does it feel like? So that's just another, I don't know, facet to think about.
Well, it's an important facet, not the least of which is because if we're talking about imagining, one of the things that I have a challenge with imagining is imagining how I'm feeling about something. Like if I want to feel particularly good about something, trying to imagine myself feel that can be a challenge for me. I don't have Jackie's acting skills. I actually have to really work hard to get there.
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking that, you know, when we start wanting to feel a certain way, I was talking at the beginning, right, about trusting myself, trusting my abundance, but also trusting the universe. So it's like trusting that the universe is probably able to deliver me something I can't even imagine. Like I'm imagining laying horizontal and the universe is giving me a shower. Like
You're right.
if I trust that the universe can deliver in a better, bigger way than I can probably think up myself, then maybe I can just trust in that instead of having to worry about being specific. And yet I'm also a big fan of being very specific about what we want, because we have to know what we want to some degree. But sometimes maybe we can just shoot for, how do we want to feel to start?
It's a good idea. I'm also reminded of what Abraham talks about when they've talked about what you ask for, what to ask for. For instance, they mentioned at one point that a lot of people ask for, you know, $1 million or something like that. And their reply to that is, if you're going to ask for a large amount of money, ask for at least 15 to 20 million.
Yes.
You know, go for it.
I've never heard them say this
Exactly.
before. Really? That's great.
They really did say that, yeah. And it makes sense. If you're going to go for it, go for the gusto. I mean, Louise and I were having a conversation about that the other day. We were talking about the gardening business, and we were talking about ways to make it easier on ourselves. Basically, is there a way to turn it into a turnkey kind of operation where you turn it on, you walk away and collect cash, that kind of thing? And I thought about it for a moment. And I said, why would I want to do that? It's a $250,000 business. Let's go for something that's in the millions or billions. You know, I mean, really, if we're going to go for something, let's go for it. And Louise gave me this look like, oh my God, I didn't think of that. But we so easily fall into those little traps of focusing on, let's get this little thing to go.
Yeah. I think a lot of times
Yeah,
people use
because
that.
we only,
Go ahead.
yeah, we limit it to what we've known so far.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we hear $1 million, and that's sort of one of those things that's a cliche almost. People say it just, you know, it's just a measure. And when someone tells me that they want to attract, make, create, whatever, $1 million, I often ask them what they would do with it.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you don't know what you would do with $1 million, then do you know what you would do with $500,000? Do you know what you do with 20 million? Like,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's important that we know what we would do with it, because we're showing some level of, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is. We're communicating to the universe some level of responsibility, or some level of, you know, knowing what we're going to do once it happens, instead of just throwing it out there. It's kind of like a child asking for something and they don't really even know what they're asking for. So I think it's important we kind of have some idea. My husband and I did this one night. We actually sat down and we figured out exactly what we would do if we suddenly had $100 million. We figured it out. We figured out where it would go, what we would do with it. It was so much fun.
There used to be a game called the abundance game, I think it was, or the prosperity game, where you had to spend, in inverted commas, more and more money every month, or every day rather. And I was surprised at how fast I ran out of what I knew to buy. It's like those top of the mind things, right?
Yeah.
I spent all that, and that was the first week. And then all of a sudden I've got, okay, now I've got another $1 million to spend. Oh, it's so much work.
I did the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so
too.
it's really a fun thing. But then this is really interesting as far as identity goes, because you have to work out who you'll be with that money, who you'll be when you have, and then what you do. Because if you're going to be somebody who wins the lottery, if you're going to have the winnings of the lottery, but be somebody who's broke, you will go back to the identity without any,
Mhm.
it is inevitable that unless you shift the identity, you won't get there. But a lot of people will be able to shift to an identity where they have the million, and then that level of abundance, those feelings start to show up in other ways.
Yep.
And it is, for me, I want a spacious calendar and a full bank account. Those are my two things. I do not want to have to work so hard that I have no time, but I also want to have money to spend in my free time. So
Mhm.
these two things are part of the identity. I want to be able to say I have a spacious calendar and a full bank account, and that allows me to be, do, have, right? And it's an identity. It's not, because you can be, you can be a millionaire and look like one of those crazy panic-stricken hedge fund managers, or you can look like Michael Douglas in Wall Street, or you can look like Sir Richard Branson and be in shorts on your own island. There
Mhm.
is a lot of ways to do that thing.
Yeah.
How would you do it? And that's the identity. And that's the feelings, the thoughts, because I don't subscribe to the universe as a replacement for God. I don't think I get given. I think I attract. I
Mhm.
really do. I think I focus and create, and it comes in. It's physics. It comes in to fill that observation. So the more I can make the observation tangible of the identity with the way I will feel, with the way I will show up. What will I have for breakfast? How will I feel when I balance my checking account? Who's going to teach me? Am I going to worry about my own investing, or am I going to trust somebody? Am I
Mhm.
going to buy a house, or am I going to live in a caravan? And how am I going to be a millionaire? This is the core for me. And then the more I focus on that identity, the more the universe conspires on my behalf. It's not that it gives me anything, it's that it rushes in to accommodate.
Yes, thank you for saying that, because it is not, when we start thinking in the opposite way, then we come up against often that idea of deserving, which I don't subscribe to
Mm-hmm.
at all, right? And we get that
Yep.
idea of deserve pushed at us a lot, right?
Oh yeah.
Even with the idea of, people that have this work ethic that's like, you should only deserve to have food and shelter if you work hard enough. It's like, I don't subscribe to any of that. And I think that when we get into that area, then is when we start feeling like we're not worthy if something doesn't show up, like something's wrong with us, like we don't deserve it. And none of that is the thing at all. It's just always reflecting back our identity to us. That's it. Who are we? It's always attached to a story.
Yep.
That's
Mm-hmm.
the part we have to change. And to
Yeah,
me,
absolutely.
that's the part that feelings are attached to. Like, if you have someone tell you their story and they've had a lot of hardship and pain in their life, they may start telling a sad story. Or if they're very successful and they've accomplished all the things they've set out to, their story may be full of confidence and and happiness that they've made these achievements. But there's always emotions attached to it. So that's, again, to that feeling part that I think is so important. Jackie and I were talking about this yesterday, that we manifest with feeling. I think that's why I love Neville so much. He's always on that track of the feelings. We don't manifest from our head. The thought might occur to us in our head,
Sure.
but the manifestation is through the body. Actually, feelings are in the
Mhm.
body. It's through the emotion and the feeling. So we can't neglect that. That has to be there.
Yeah, I like to think of the feelings as being the accelerator.
Yes.
I think that's true because you can have somebody say the lines of a show. Like we've all heard people reading Shakespeare. Oh dear God.
Mhm.
If there was a level of hell for me, it's some middle school person reading Shakespeare. It's like no. So
No.
and I'm not dissing middle school students, but yeah, but there is a certain level there.
I have the
But
same thing with
and
middle
then you
school
have
students when they're
somebody
singing,
who
by the way.
says it like they mean it.
Yeah. Right.
It
And
is,
you know what?
but it's
People,
and it's the same words, but the feeling is different, and therefore the vibration is different. Therefore the intention is different. Therefore the way it lands is different. So the feelings can't be disconnected, but they also can't be the only thing. You have to do all the other bits.
Hmm.
yes.
Hmm. Interesting too how we're emphasizing the emotional side, because the emotional side, in order to know that side, you really have to have a very good handle on the thing that you're attaching the emotion to. It's pretty hard to just feel a general emotion. It's much easier to attach it to something.
Yes.
You can transfer it though, because you can remember how fabulous you felt when this thing happened and say, I'm going to feel much the same way when this
True.
next thing arrives.
True.
This is method acting, right? We don't all have to be beaten to death by a bully in the third act to know how that might feel, because we can pull those emotions. So I think transference is really, really cool. And for me, a lot of the time somebody says, I want to feel confident. Well, confidence has a lot of nuance, but like I want to feel like I'm holding my own. That's a good spot, right? Or if they say, I want to feel I want to feel secure. Well, where else do you feel secure? Can you transfer that? Can you move that into and somehow replicate it when you're doing your bank checking, whatever it is, so that you can transfer that? We are able to do that as humans. It's an amazing ability, and we can tap into it in our manifesting.
Yes, and anchoring a feeling. Like, I'm glad you brought this up about
Mhm.
confidence, because I had this conversation this morning with a client, and I love giving this particular homework assignment. So if you want to feel more confident, take a notebook and give yourself 30 minutes and start writing a list at everything you're really good at, whether it's a skill, whether it's an emotional intelligence, whether it's something you accomplish. Write down your accomplishments, write down what makes you or what you think would make you good for this thing you're going for. Just keep going and going and going. And what happens is that all these things come up you completely forgot about. Oh yeah, and I did this too, and I did that too. And what I usually say is, when you get to the end of it or at the beginning, ask yourself this before you start, on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being like, I couldn't be more confident, I'm the most confident person on the planet, and 1 being, I have no confidence in myself at all. Where are you? Don't overthink it. Just what number comes up, write the number down, then write the list and ask yourself, how do you feel now? And I guarantee you will feel much more confident. Then the next thing you do is like really feel it, anchor that feeling in, memorize what it feels like. And if you'll take 60 seconds to really memorize how good that feels in your body, what confidence feels like in your body. You're sitting up straighter now, your shoulders are back, you're feeling so good and so sure. Then you can tap into that feeling in the future. Like Jackie said, something comes up, you're like, I need to really feel confident. Oh yeah, I remember that feeling. I know what it feels like.
Yeah,
That's cool.
and that's why that's absolutely why I give my clients 2 pieces of homework, similar stuff. I get them to watch Dr. Alison Cuddy's TED Talk. So it's Cuddy, Cuddy, Alison Cuddy, and it's about body language, right? She talks about the superhero pose, which is the legs slightly apart, chest up. I call it boobs out, chin up, and your hands on your hips.
Wonder Woman.
Yeah, Wonder Woman, this cross pose. This is a little more, to me, it feels more defensive, but it is that thing. But what's interesting is the studies that she's done of physiology and the chemical changes that happen in your body when you stand in that pose. Your body knows what that pose means. And so you can use it. And she says, 2 minutes, go and do that. And it's always the case. And then for me, I go, ta-da! I take, it's my take in the bows. It's a curtsy of appreciation. It's a, oh yes, of course, you're all up on your feet screaming. It is that kind of a thing. And so when you do that in advance, you show up in that expectation. The feelings create the inevitability of that scenario, of that identity, and you move towards it in a way that makes it inevitable, as opposed to coming from the other end and hoping you deserve it, which is an underneath rather than a top down.
I'm so glad you mentioned that TED Talk. I literally have had clients in the ladies' room 5 minutes before a job interview doing the Wonder Woman pose.
I do that all the up. Absolutely. Yeah. I have had clients do the same. I say, go to the ladies' room, stand there until you feel good, and it's she's.
I love it.
It works. It's not woo. It's science. It's right there in your body, and you can tap into it. And what's really cool is that I've experienced it, and I've had so many reports of standing in that pose brings your brain online. It's like you may be going, I'm really not sure about this. I'm not worried. I'm a tad worried about the presentation. Blah, 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 blah. You stand in this, and all of a sudden your brain's going, you know what? I am the best thing that they could have. And it actually changes your thought patterns from the inside out, as opposed to trying to think your way through it. You're actually embodying first.
One of the things I love about the law of attraction is how it is active at all moments. And it was active just now because just before you started going into this little bit here about adopting the pose, using the physiology to build the confidence and so forth. The question I was about to ask you guys was, if you're trying to make your list and you can't think of anything to put on the list, what do you do? And you just answered it.
Stand in your pose.
You know what's cool about this is that we're talking about trust and trust in abundance. And Jackie, that's a perfect example of like 1 minute you're not trusting. You're not trusting in your ability, not fully trusting in what you're bringing to the table, in your ability to do whatever. And then a simple embodiment practice, right? And suddenly you are trusting. You're like, oh no, I've got this. And it's so true. And so bringing it back into the body, right? And this is like the backwards part. It's instead of like feeling something in your body first, you're actually consciously putting your body, feet up on the desk creates the same the same chemical response, right? It's that power pose, the boss sitting back with the feet on the desk, or leaning with your hands on a desk and leaning forward. All three of those create that same response in the brain. It's amazing. Humans are amazing.
Yeah, they are. It's so cool because it's that feeling of pulling back as well will give you perspective. If that's something you need, if some people are getting at you and there's a lot going on and you're feeling somewhat frazzled, leaning back will give you literal distance and allow you to not disconnect but separate out. It'll give you perspective. So there's lots of ways we study this in theater. This is part of acting as if. This is why acting as if translates so incredibly well to manifesting, is that you can act as if and your body will go with you to whatever it is that you want to create. And it's why there's a whole section in, when I work with clients and when I'm in the programs that I'm building, there's a section on body language. It has to do with embodiment. And it becomes inevitable because you are already that. You are that which you are becoming. And you just have to emerge as it. And it looks like magic, and it's not. It's you being the brilliant human that you are.
What you're describing here is a great way of explaining what I experienced a couple days ago. because a couple days ago, I did my recording session with Selena Dorsey Valentine, who runs the Law of Attraction World Summit. So I was doing my session with her that she's going to use in the summit. And it's just basically a sit-down interview, a Zoom type interview. But she asked me a question that she wanted me to address, and I started addressing it, and then she put me on full screen, which means I'm front and center now. Well, it also means I can't see her. So there's no visual cues telling me how am I doing, how much time do I have, am I answering the question? and I mentally froze for a split second, like, oh my God, what do I do now? But fortunately, I have all these years doing the podcast. I said, well, I'll just do a podcast for a moment. And so I just dove into doing the podcast, and I didn't have even a clear idea what I was going to answer to her question. So I just did my trick of, well, I'm going to open my mouth and see what comes out. So I did that, and it seemed like I was going forever. It seemed like it was going on and on. I'm thinking to myself, I must be just blabbering over right now. I mean, there must be nothing coherent coming out of my mouth. And then I finally realized, well, I need to find some way to kind of frame an ending so that she'll come back on the screen and I'll know what to do. So I framed an ending. She came back on the screen, and she was just effusive with, oh my God, I can't believe how wonderful that. And I'm thinking to myself, oh God, thank you. I got it. I did it. I wonder what I said.
I have to go back and watch the recording.
Right,
yes.
Exactly. You mean I was actually coherent? How about that?
Yep, that's identity for you. It works every time.
And I was very glad of that, because otherwise I'm not sure what I would have done if I didn't have that background as a podcast host to handle that situation. It was funny. Oh my goodness. Now let's look at the trust side of it a little bit more, because we're talking about trust in terms of confidence, and I think the confidence we've been referring to is confidence in ourselves. But we also, I think, have a challenge with having confidence in how the universe works. Very often you'll hear or see people talking about, well, I've been working on trying to attract this X thing into my life, and no matter what I do, I've been doing my affirmations, I've been thinking about it, I've been singing about it in the morning, and it just doesn't show up. And you can just tell the way they're saying it, they really don't have a whole lot of trust in the process. So how do you handle that side of it?
My thought is because you're still being somebody who is trying to get that thing. You're not being somebody who has it. You're being somebody who's trying to get it. It's like being somebody who's losing weight will mean you're always going to have weight to lose. Being somebody who's trying to get a promotion, you will always be somebody trying to get a promotion. If you become somebody who has the promotion, somebody who is at that weight, it's a very different perspective. And I mentioned it to my client today. I'm making a meme, but it says lifestyle is identity made visible. This is exactly what it is. When you are living the lifestyle of somebody who is at the weight, at that fitness level, at that job level, at that Starfleet commander going to space level, whatever it is, you are going to find that you don't drop out of character. But we take our metric as the goal. I am losing weight. No, that's not the goal. The goal is to be somebody who is at that weight. The goal is to be somebody who is in that position. And so it's a different perspective. My question is always, who are you being?
Who are you being? That's a great question. Because ultimately we want to be ourselves, but we also want ourselves to be that place of being that we really wanted to be at.
Well, but ourselves is plural for a reason. Ourselves is so many versions. Which version do you want to be? Which version are you being? We contain
and half the time multitudes. I don't even know. No, I'm serious. I mean, there are times I've gotten pretty good at putting out there what I'm looking for and getting what I want and so forth. And yet there are times where it's almost like I just lost control of the steering wheel for a moment.
But isn't this when trust is most important?
Absolutely. That's why I'm talking about this right now.
Yes.
Right? Like if I'm supremely confident, I probably don't really need trust as much. It's when things don't seem to be going the way that I want them to go that I tap into trusting the process, trusting myself, trusting the universe, trusting that I'm in the right place at the right time, doing the right thing right now. That's the process that we trust.
My trust always stems from, do I believe this is a friendly universe? Yes. Do I think it'll all work out better than expected? Yes. And those two things allow me to move through with what looks like confidence, but it's actually an expectation of the result being for my benefit in some way or another.
Totally agree. Yeah. And that's the thing, is that it's faith, right? It's like whenever I hear someone say to me, I hope, like I ask somebody something, oh, I hope so. Oh, let's get beyond that.
Yeah.
Like the only time that hope is valuable is when we're feeling hopeless.
Yes.
And we need to have our hope restored. But as soon as we have hope, we need to move that hope into faith, which is trust.
And expectation.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's important.
That's the climbing of the Abraham Hicks emotional guidance scale.
There you go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's exactly what that is.
Back into the body again with those emotions.
Yes.
We always end up back there, don't we? It's amazing how that happens.
We are having a human experience for real.
In the body.
Mm-hmm.
That body means that the recognition that it's in the body means that we really do need to be cognizant. We need to be aware of that mind-body connection, because the mind part we usually have pretty good. I could think a thought, no problem. It's the body connection part that we can kind of lose track of. And I think what we're saying here is that connection, we got to be aware of it, really, really aware of it.
And cultivate it. You can change your walk. You can change the way you sit. You can change the way you enter a room. You can change the way you have dinner. You can so much about the way you move your body through your experiences, and that will change the experience itself.
Boy, that's really good.
That's important, because that's important to get that distinction Jackie's talking about. Because so many times the things that people want to attract, like Jackie was talking about, a position at work or more money or a mate. And when you're trying to coach them to become that person that has those things, they often find it hard because they're like, well, I'm not that person. If I was that person, I could go fly first class back home, right? And so they're finding it hard because they're attaching so much weight to the monetary thing. But you'll do everything differently with your body when you're that person. So I remember asking someone one time, they said they wanted to be a well-funded retiree. And I said, so how does she drink her coffee? How does she throw the towels into the dryer? Like things you're already going to be doing today. It doesn't have to be that you're going to go shop and spend $1 million, right? Or that you're going to plan a trip with your loved one, your beloved, when you don't have a beloved. It's how do you embody it, and in the everyday stuff? Because once you have the 20 million, once you have the lover, once you have the promotion at work, you're still going to be doing day-to-day things like putting on your shoes, and fixing your hair. So how do you do those things when you're that person? And the change in your body may be very slight, but you'll feel it. There's a different way you carry yourself when you're in that mode. So it's a really good distinction that Jackie brings up there. Really important.
Jackie also made a reference a few moments ago to, she was giving a list of examples. And one of the examples was, what if you're a Starfleet commander? And I'm not sure if that was directly intended to be connected to the news item today because William Shatner, who played James T. Kirk, ended up climbing on
To
top of
William
a Blue Origin.
Shatner, yes.
Yeah, climbed on top of a rocket and went up into outer space, which is really very appropriate, of course. And
Right.
his commentary after he came down was basically to illustrate that he was blown away by the experience. Now, I think about that in the context of the man I saw so many years ago playing Captain James T. Kirk on Star Trek. The man was just, that character was just a total confidence character. He had to be. He was the captain of the Enterprise, and he just exuded confidence. And here's the actor who was very good at exuding that confidence, who was basically exuding confidence about being in a place that he knew nothing about. Now that he actually got there, he was blown away by it.
Yes.
That's
yes.
pretty cool.
It is. It's so cool. It is. And you know that you will always leave room for this or something better. That's a very wise thing to do, because you can only gauge your experiences in hindsight, and as much imagination as you have access to. But like I said, with my first class experience, the fact I didn't even know that you could shower at 30,000 feet
Right.
meant that I never put that into my first class experience, right?
Mhm.
So, but you go, this or something better, this is, I'm going to be even amazed, even more than I'm expecting to. My mantra throughout my life has always been, it'll be this or something better. Things turn out better than expected every time. And even if you only expect a little bit, it'll be better than that. And that's a good thing, because you can build on that. So, and my mom will default to worst case scenario. I mean, she can turn a grocery trip into Armageddon. I have no idea. It's the way her brain goes. And then I'll say to her, so what's the best you can expect? Oh, that maybe I'll have 1 or 2 green lights, And then I'll say, which is quite funny because she never pays attention to them anyway. And then I'll say, well, what could be better than that? Oh, green lights the whole way along this road. Yeah, okay, that's good. Now she's looking, okay, this is feasible. Her brain, she's thinking, okay, that could happen. And then she'll come home and she said, oh, and everything I wanted was on sale. And I found a coupon for this. And it's like, and she's got all this bettering that's happening. And it's only because she opened herself up to that experience. Mm-hmm. So if things are going to be better than you expect, you can expect a very little and it'll still work.
I love it. We call it catastrophizing.
Yes.
Yes. Oh my God. Master's degree in our family, let me tell you.
My earliest mentor used to say, it's equivalent, or whatever would be better. And always stressed to me, when we say whatever would be better, we're not talking about that mindset where people say, well, I really wanted this job, but I got this one, and I guess that's what God wants, right? I guess this may be better, right? When it's not, said, no, it's this, it's equivalent, or whatever would be better. And when it is better, you will know it. You will have no doubt in your mind that it's better than the thing you wanted. So I've always held on to that too. It's a good rule of thumb, right?
Right. Yeah. I was coaching someone in my group the other day, and they said, it wasn't what I wanted, but I guess but it is progress, but it's better than nothing. She said, it's better than nothing. And I thought, when you read a text in a script, you have carte blanche about where you put the emphasis, right? My son will say, you can put the emphasis on the wrong syllable if you like. So you can say, I got this, and it is better than nothing. Mm-hmm. Not, but it's better than nothing. It is better than nothing, right? And the emphasis is where your intention goes. And your brain, bringing the brilliant human brain it is, will find confirmation for you. So when it is something better, you will find ways that it is something better.
I love that. Really good. Going back to the analogy about William Shatner and James T. Kirk, the other thing that I loved about recognizing the correlation between the character he played and the man he is today, who had the experience of actually going into space. That man, in my mind, is a brilliant portrayer of Kirk. He is Kirk in my mind. And because of that, I just think he's a fabulous actor. I don't actually know how good of an actor he is from an actor's perspective, but from my perspective, he's a fabulous actor. And yet this fabulous actor couldn't even begin to imagine what it's like to actually be in outer space. Well, that's actually kind of reassuring to me, because I have a hard time imagining stuff too. If he can imagine just that little and turn that little into that big of thing, I guess I can too.
Yeah, I to me, William Shatner is always Kirk, because Kirk is William Shatner. It's just like he plays Captain Kirk in every movie he does.
Yes, he really does.
It's the same. There are many people who have made careers out of being themselves. Kirk Douglas, Charlton Heston, John Wayne, they are themselves. You just move the scenery around, right?
Right.
As opposed to somebody like Dustin Hoffman, when you look at him as Hook, and you look at him as Tootsie, and you look at him as Rain Man, these are immersion people. Right. These are chameleons, right? Mr. Shatner, God bless him, is not a chameleon. And so it is this thing that I love. He got to experience something that he imagined for so long. That to me is just the best ever.
Me too.
You know, and now I want them to send the rest of the crew up as well. And did you see the shot where he was wearing his Kirk t-shirt and everybody else was in red? And I thought,
I didn't see that.
No. That's not good.
No, not if you come back down again. It's like, no, don't wear red.
Did they miss the memo?
How did they get those people to wear red in the first place?
Any of the episodes? Right. Yeah, it was so funny.
I mean, the only actor who actually survived wearing red was Scotty. He was the only one.
That's right.
Else who wore red died.
The red t-shirt guy. What's his name? I can't remember his name, but he always talks about the red t-shirt guy, and like, yes, and so you don't want to be the red t-shirt guy, because you know that you're going to play one scene, and you're going to be the first eaten by whatever it is that eats things. Yes, no.
You can't even be called back. You're dead.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you get your paycheck at the end of day one. Never mind at the end of the
week. When I heard about it, my husband told me about it, and I said, "This just has to make everyone feel happy."
It does, absolutely. Yes, it does, absolutely.
I also loved the comment that he made when he came back, and he was talking about how blown away he was by the whole experience. And he said he wanted everybody on Earth to experience it. I love that.
Yeah,
that's the man saying everybody should feel what I'm feeling. And we're talking about the importance of feeling. He wanted everybody to have that feeling.
Yeah. It's just like the first time that, that amazing shot from the moon of the Earth rising, where you actually, we all got to see the planet from there, which was never feasible before, right? We could see like just from the edge of the atmosphere, but we couldn't see the whole globe. And that is a seminal moment in the history of humanity, that we shared this thing, besides the people who think it's fake, but it is. But
they shared it too. They just shared it in a different way. That's all.
But there is this moment where, we are on a blue marble, and there it is in the middle of. It's just amazing. And so, could you imagine if we all got the experience to actually fly, even if we don't go into space, but just like to the edge of? It would be surreal. It would be surreal.
Yeah. I think about so many technological marvels that the three of us have gotten to experience in our lifetime, that all the humans that came before us did not experience, right?
True.
It's like so many things. It's like this today, like what we're doing right now. We're in 3 different cities all over the United States. We're here looking at each other, speaking with each other. Like, I never take that for granted. I always feel like, gosh, what a miracle that, that idea that, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. I mean, it really is. And it's amazing to think that he said, I want everyone on earth to experience it. I didn't know that. And I'm so glad you said that, because isn't that, when we have that in our head, when we have that in our heart, you know, you're experiencing something just absolutely amazing. When all you can think of is, oh my gosh, I want everyone to know this feeling, right? That's so cool. Yeah, that just gave me chills.
Totally agree. And the fact that he was trying to share it with everybody. I don't know how much he knows about what we call conscious creation, but it tells me that he has some idea about it, because he wants everybody to have the power. That's what I took away from it. I mean, he may have meant something different, but too bad. That's what I took away from it.
Well, I have no doubt that it is something that everyone will experience. I don't know when. I don't know how far in the future we're going with that, but someday, you know, I mean, people are experiencing it now, so eventually,
you know. Yeah, and the speed of technology gets ever faster. I mean, you know, when my mother moved to Nigeria and then back down to South Africa, she used to write to my grandmother in England every week. And it used to be these blue airmail letters. It was a single sheet of paper that you folded in three, and you didn't have to put a stamp on and write. And it used to take a full week to get to England. So the information's flow was always a week off, right? And so we would save up for phone calls, because phone calls were hella expensive, and were actually part of your birthday present. You know, when Nana found, it was a big deal. Yeah, and then when by the time I was 35, so we're talking 35 years, and we moved from my family moved from South Africa to the US. I was emailing my mother. 35 years. That's all it took to go from a letter that took a week to get around the globe to emailing my mother, and she would have it within a minute or two. She still printed it out and read it to my father. However, the fact was, it was delivered.
That's great.
But what you're talking about,
but you know, and now this is what we're doing.
Yeah.
This is what we're doing 10 years later. So we've gone 35 and 10. And now my 2-year-old grandbaby is swiping left and choosing her app and knows how to turn the iPad on. And it's like, yeah, I have no doubt that she will experience space flight. I have no doubt. I might not, but I think she will. And that just blows my mind. It's so amazing.
The babies born today are wired for the internet already. It's so weird.
Yes. None of this nonsense about having chips and stuff. No. The morphic field will just do that for you.
That's right.
Exactly. That's it. They arrive ready. Wi-Fi ready.
Yeah.
Wi-Fi ready. What this is also touching on for me is the importance of how to actively appreciate your way into abundance, appreciate your way into trust. Because what we're doing is we're appreciating the technological advances, and we're appreciating, to use Cindy's phrase, the magic of how things work. That's not something that was part of my growing up. I know that. That's something that has definitely evolved.
We haven't had that many glitches since we started it too.
Yeah, how about that?
Right? Yeah.
That's the high vibe thing again.
Yeah.
But the simple fact is, there are a lot. There are a lot of ways to get into that place of abundance, and I think we've not only talked about some of them, but we've also lived them here. We've acted them out, so to speak. We've acted as if, to use Jackie's phrase.
We have, absolutely. It is key. It's absolutely key, because thoughts do become things, but there's doing in between. Thoughts become. You have to become the things.
And Cindy, I have to say, more and more I am taking on your idea of everything being magical. It's my way of understanding just how alive everything is, because I really do grasp now everything is alive, and it's kind of a scary prospect, but at the same time it's exciting.
Yes, because you're so connected. You're so connected to everything that is. That's my favorite term for. Yeah, it's my favorite term for the universe and God. It's everything that is, and then I am a fragment of everything that is, and get to experience life that way.
I have this backdrop behind me of the stars, and I've had a few different backdrops of that kind. In the past, years ago, that would have felt like a very cold backdrop to me. It would have felt like it was just empty space that didn't have anything there. It was just, lifeless and all that kind of thing. Now it has a completely different feeling. Now it has warmth to it. Now that's me changing my perspective. That's me, working on myself, developing my connectedness, all that kind of stuff. But nevertheless, it feels tangibly different to me now. And this whole idea of going into space, that's just like the next piece of that connectedness. It's the next piece of that feeling that everything is alive. Even the blackness of space, that's what I'm currently working on right now. The idea that the blackness of space is full of energy. And I call that source energy because they haven't got a better name for it, so I'm going to call it that.
I think for so long I don't know
why not?
I don't know what caused it. The technological advances, I don't know what, but like the industrial age, but there's been this separation. Like you even hear people say, I need to get out in nature. And I know what people mean when they say that, but we are part of nature. And I think more and more we're hearing people recognize that we're all connected. Not just all humans are connected to other humans. We're connected to everything. Like you said, everything on the planet, everything in the galaxy. And so we are part of that, not just separate from it. And I hear more and more people kind of talking about that. And that's also important to our ability to manifest, is to see the connectedness of all things, because that's energy that's connected. And that's how we're manifesting it, right? By energy. Yeah.
Yes.
How interesting, the more that we become aware of that energy, not just intellectually, but through feeling, through tangible connectedness. The more we become aware of it, the more it becomes alive, but also the more we begin to trust.
That's
right.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we have an expectation of outcome, which is what trust is.
Because now it seems real.
And
it's becoming more and more real for me every day. I think it is for other people too. But I know, just speaking from my own experience,
I think so.
All of this is becoming much more real every day.
Yeah. This is literally the age of Aquarius. This is what they've talked about.
Right?
Is us all realizing, realizing the collectiveness of us all. I'm glad
I finally understand that, because
it really
when I first heard that song 50, 60 years ago, I didn't know what the heck they were talking about. I didn't have the first clue. So it's nice to actually have it come together.
And it took a long time.
Oh, that's what they're talking about. Okay.
We've all been about it.
Took a while for us to all get there. Reality takes some time to catch up, right? Always. It does. It is how it is.
The lag time.
And then I'm going to throw one more little thing in there, just as like a little add-on, a little cherry on top. One of the things I think I hear a lot is people complaining that, well, when's everybody else going to get this stuff? It's just like this little small community that understands it. The wide community, they're just oblivious to it. They're never going to get anywhere. No one's going to ever come together and create the world we want. And it's like this long litany of things like that. And I say to myself, are we looking at the same world? Because that's not what I'm seeing at all. I'm seeing like these massive shifts going on in leaps and bounds. So I guess once again, it just shows, what are you paying attention to? What are you giving your foundational belief to?
And the lens you look at everything through.
Yeah, that's it. Well, I'm really glad that we did this conversation about trust and abundance.
Me too.
First of all, because I realized lately we haven't touched on abundance very much at all. So I'm glad we got there. That's really good. And thank you for this journey. I feel like we just took a journey through the universe. Seriously,
so good. So good.
It was.
Yes. Glitches and all.
Glitches and all. Hey, at least we can have a glitch like this. It doesn't take a week for this glitch to happen. It happens in seconds.
Yes. Awesome. That's the upside, for sure.
All right. So thank you, ladies.
Awesome.
Thank you, especially to our podcast listeners everywhere. We will see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.